Pretty boo, pretty girl. You're my pretty girl. You're my pretty girl. Pretty Brenda. I got a pretty Brenda. Can I get a kiss? Can I get a kiss? Boo. Kiss mommy? Yeah, I got a puppy kiss. Yeah, Brenda kiss. Okay. So where did I leave Denjiro in the last video? Oh yes, moping, slash devastated, slash tormented by anger, rage, regret, sadness, abandonment, guilt. If I didn't already say guilt, all of that stuff in an abandoned hilltop shrine. To the point where he was so just consumed with rage and everything over Odin's death and the supposed loss of all of his friends and the rest of the Kosuke family and everything. That he becomes so all of that he just, you know, his face changes and his hair changes and just everything changes to the point where you can't even recognize him anymore. And that's where we last left him. And that's what we'll pick up today with Denjiro Part 2, going into Kiyoshiro. Or kind of becoming Kiyoshiro. So, fun there. So, what we have from there, this video is going to cover from when he becomes Kiyoshiro pretty much all the way up until he arrives with his fleet of ships and the other samurai and reveals himself to be Denjiro. So I will kind of just be referring to him as Kiyoshiro during this time frame because that is kind of what he is associated as. That's what he's referred to as. So, Denjiro makes his way out of the shrine, and his hair's changed color, his face has just become so twisted and unrecognizable that anyone who would come across him who knew him as Denjiro would not recognize him. Which becomes very evident later on. But his appearance has changed so dramatically and so drastically in such a short time that it's just like, who is this man? And he wanders his way into the flower capital because he doesn't really have anything else to do. And I guess we don't know exactly how long it's been since he went into the shrine and had this transformation and everything, but it's been at least, I would say, at least a couple of weeks, and it's not maybe a month or two. I don't think we get an exact time frame. I just don't think there's an exact time frame. I'm checking this and I'm not seeing it. I don't think it was a year. I don't think it was a year that he was gone, but eventually he's like, okay, I'm just gonna go wander, and he wanders into the flower capital. And he's just, he's confronted over his rough appearance and everything by these other guys that live in the capital, and they try to attack him, and he just, beats him into the ground. And then they're just clicks in of, oh, he's really strong. Please let us become your followers and swear fealty to you. And they're like, what is your name? And he's like, Kiyoshiro. Kiyoshiro. And that is what he becomes. And he starts to gather a large number of followers, and he ends up with this newfound power that he has because he is very strong anyway. He trained alongside the other Scabbards and everything, so he's quite strong already. Probably had to get new swords. I did double check at one point. We don't have names for Kiyoshiro's swords. I think Kanemon was the only Scabbard who I think we have a name for his sword. No, I think we know Kawamatsu's sword, but I think the rest of the Scabbards, I don't know if we know the names of their swords, for the ones who have swords. I mean, Nekomamushi has a Catling gun, but that's different. That's a bit of a different thing. But what ends up happening is Kiyoshiro just starts to build up, followers, and he basically ends up, he offers his services to Orochi as a bodyguard and to supply the shogun with more riches, because one of the things that, as I mentioned, as Denjiro, that he was very good at was very good with managing the money, beyond what Kanjuro kept stealing and everything and giving to Orochi. Denjiro was very good with money, so Kiyoshiro is taking that and he's using that to his advantage. And he starts bringing all of this gold and other riches and everything like that to Orochi. And and Denjiro hates this. Kiyoshiro hates having to kowtow and beg and flatter Orochi. He hates it, and he has to do this for 20 effing years. Man's got patience, I'll give him that much. And so he does this, and he ends up using this power and his influence to become one of the Yakuza bosses, basically just like kind of the current Yakuza boss at that point in time, because we don't know. We know that Hirogoro has been at the very least thrown into Udon at this point in time, and as I stated in the other Yakuza video, about the other miscellaneous Yakuza that we run into that are the Yakuza leaders for the other 4 regions, we don't know when they were all thrown into Udon in the first place. We don't know how long they've been there. They may have been thrown in there at the same time that Hirogoro was, or a bit later. We're not sure. But Denjiro eventually, or Kiyoshiro eventually, becomes like the top Yakuza boss in the area, and just like the flower capital and in Wano in general, and he builds up his followers, and they become the Kiyoshiro family. One of the things that also happens is that during this time frame at night, he has disguised himself and he steals from the homes of the rich flower capital citizens. Now, given the way that we kind of learn stuff later for how Hiyori, plies her trade and everything, I'm assuming these are ones who Kiyoshiro is aware of that definitely agree with Orochi, and he goes into their homes and he steals from them, and then he takes their money and he delivers it to the impoverished villages outside of the capital, like the leftover towns and everything, so that way they have money to then buy food and water and everything else like that. Now, I don't think he does this every night, but he does it a lot. And he gains the moniker because people see him and they start calling him Ushimitsu Kozu, which is, like the Midnight Bandit or something like that. Where he's very much, like a Robin Hood type figure, although there is a figure in, like, Japanese mythology that is very similar to it, and that's what he's kind of based on. Also, he ends up developing the name of, or the other moniker of, Napping Kiyoshiro, because he's doing all these late night escapades. He also just randomly falls asleep at various points in time. As I said, random narcolepsy thing that happens, but it's more reasonable than just like Ace randomly falls asleep while he's eating something in the middle of Alabasta. And Kiyoshiro, he builds, he keeps some of the money that he steals to use as like his own investment and stuff like that, but mostly he like gives the money away, drops it in like the poor neighborhoods and areas and stuff like that, so that way people can, the people there can try to afford food and water and medicine and stuff like that, because he's like, this is at least something I can do. Then we get to the point where he eventually ends up building up one of the brothels, or building up more of the pleasure district, where he becomes part of that. Now, we know the pleasure district existed before Kiyoshiro showed up, because we know that Odin had like issues with this and everything else like that. He had his own problems that happened in the pleasure district, with gambling and prostitutes and the harem revolts and everything else like that happened. But Kiyoshiro builds up at least his own brothel in the red light district and the pleasure district, but we don't know exactly when he started this. It may have just been something that, like, maybe Hirogoro had been supportive of one of those places, and now Kiyoshiro is like taking over that more forcefully, but still taking good care of the geishas and the oirons and stuff like that are under his protection. Because one of the things that we do see with Kiyoshiro throughout all of this is that the ones who are under his protection, he takes very good care of. And stuff like that, whether it's his subordinates and his cohorts that are the ones who, that swore loyalty to him and who work for him and everything else like that, or the ones who are, like, as I said, like the geishas and the oirons and the other ones who work in the pleasure district. He protects them, because they're citizens of Wano who really have nowhere else to go, and he would rather he be the one looking after them than trying to leave them at in Orochi's clutches as much as he could avoid that. And also it means that he has like ways of having income and stuff like that in regards to like the way that the brothels work. And then we get to the point where we get to 7 years or so after Odin's death. We have it that he finds Hiyori. And Kazuki Hiyori, he ends up, there's these two, and I'll go into this more when I get into, when I talk about Hiyori, but she's left Kawamatsu, and she left Kawamatsu because Kawamatsu doesn't even have enough food to give her, so he's not even eating, and she wants him to eat, so she makes her way into the flower capital eventually, where she is found by these two, I think they're just supposed to be like two other geishas or oiruns or something like that find her, and they bring her in front of the pleasure house where Kiroshiro resides. It takes her to his residence or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you what about this little girl? 7, Hiyori was 6, so Hiyori's about 13, I think, at this point in time. And Kiroshiro recognizes her instantly. To be fair, in his, he was around Toki. He knows what Toki looks like. He saw Hiyori as a child all the way up until she was 6 years old and everything, when everything happened with Odin. So he knows what Hiyori looks like. And he recognizes her instantly. But he has to like hide that he recognizes her. And they're like, what do would you like, the two... God bless these two women. They're probably women who work for Kiroshiro at this point in time, and they're like, well, she is a pretty little girl. We can probably take her in. Pretty sure Boss Kiroshiro would take her in, so we'll take her here. And he instantly agrees to it because he recognizes her. Also, he's probably done this before with other young girls that they come across. We see something very similar things happen with like Toko and stuff like that. Where they're brought in and then they end up acting as like apprentices to the geishas and to the oirons. And he brings in Hiyori and he takes her into a private area within the place where he knows that they are not being listened to, and he reveals that he is Denjiro. And Hiyori is just flabbergasted by this because as far as she was aware, she knows that her brother and the others got sent into the future. She knows that Kawamatsu at least was alive last time she saw him, but she doesn't know if whoever else was still alive. So she's just like so happy to see that he's alive, and he tells her that she has to hide her identity. Has to hide the fact that she is Hiyori, Kozuki Hiyori, that she is the daughter of Odin, that she is technically the rightful princess of Wano. And he has to hide that from her. He has to make her hide that. And he comes up with this idea because the thing that he has been waiting for is Kiroshiro's intention at this point in time is to like, okay, I've made my way to Orochi's side. I want someone that he trusts. And if I stay in his good graces, then, and like he would have heard about like Toki's prophecy at this point in time. And he's like, okay, so it's been this long since Odin's passed, so I still have this many more years to go. So if I wait this time frame, I can try to time it with when the prophecy would be coming true anyway, and then I can end Orochi's life that way. Bringing Hiyori in means that he brings her in on his plan. And he starts to raise her and everything, and he, raise her in for the next 13 years. She grows, and she eventually becomes the Oiran known as, Komurasaki. This ethereal beauty in the Pleasure District as like this highest ranked, most beautiful, most talented Oiran that Wano has seen in whoever knows however many generations. Side note, and I'll probably mention this when I get to Hiyori again, people outside of Wano always like to compare Hiyori's beauty to, or like, I guess it would be like the Beast Pirates, because they know about like Boa Hancock and Princess Shirahoshi and stuff like that. Like they compare the beauties of like Boa Hancock compared to Hiyori, compared to, Princess Shirahoshi and everything else like that, because like they're all so gorgeous and so beautiful and everything. And yes, as I've stated, Boa Hancock is beautiful. I'm not going to deny that. It's her personality that I don't like. And Hiyori, as Komurasaki, plays with men. She plays with them. She toys with them. She puppeteers them into giving her their money by playing with their heartstrings and everything. Now, she only does that to certain men. There's probably other customers that she actually probably really likes, and they're actually probably really nice people, and she doesn't treat them like this, like she does, where she cons the men out of their money and everything, which I'll go more into when I get to the Hiyori videos near the end of the series, or near the end of the Wano section. But Denjiro probably helped train her in this. He helped give her acting lessons and everything else like that. And the thing that I want to point out here that I think would be a very interesting flashback for Oda to show at some point in time. I don't think we'll ever see it, but it would be a very interesting flashback, or this would be like an interesting question to send in as an SBS. Would be, I just need to have like a list of like SBS questions I would like to ask Oda. Some that are fun, some that are more sad, some that are just intriguing and stuff like that. But like, were there times where, as Hiyori was, taking on the, name and the type of, being Komurasaki, like having that be her name, because she would have had to have been called that almost ever since she was brought in to the Pleasure District, ever since he, took her under his wing. And she's, training and training and training. And there had to have been nights where it was so hard for her to be like, I can do this, and just like break down, and like he would just like probably bring her into like his chambers or whatever and just like let her sit there and cry and like just hold her and comfort her and everything else like that. Because he knows how it feels, and he doesn't want Hiyori to become as consumed with rage and anger and everything else like that he did, and he doesn't want that to happen to her. He wants her to be this beautiful princess that he knows that she has every right to be as Odin's daughter, and just as who she is in general. And I just, that is just something that I wish would have been touched on at some point in time, because it's like, we get like this time jump in there where it's just like, because when we get like the Odin flashback and then like the rest of the flashback where we see, what happened with Denjiro and how he became Kuroshiro and everything that we get for that reveal, we have it that, we see the Hiyori stuff getting drawn into there where, like, she ran away from Kawamatsu so he could eat, and she ends up in the flower capital, and then she's taken in by Denjiro as Kuroshiro and everything, and, given the alias of Komurasaki, where she's been raised into this amazing Oiran. We just kind of skip that whole time frame. That 13-year time jump. We basically just get like a 13-year time jump there for them, where she's brought in and she's training and she's getting better and better and more refined and everything else like that, improving on her skills, making a name for herself, and then eventually she is Komurasaki. She is this Oiran. She is this amazing, entertainer and everything else like that. And everybody adores her. There had to have been times where she just needed to go and cry and just, I'm not Komurasaki for the moment. I am Hiyori. I am Hiyori Kozuki. I am the daughter of Kozuki Odin. I am the daughter of Kozuki Toki. I am the sister of Kozuki Momonosuke, and all this stuff, like just like remembering who she is, because it is kind of this like dual identity. And Denjiro, as Kuroshiro, is going through something very similar. And at least when it's just the two of them and there's no one else around, maybe Toko, later on once Toko shows up, and and she's given the taken in as like Komurasaki's like apprentice, maybe when it's just those three, there are times where Hiyori just gets to cry, or gets to not have to be Komurasaki for a little while. And I'll probably mention this again when I get to the Hiyori video, specifically during her time as Komurasaki. So over the next 13 years, that's what happens. She becomes Komurasaki. Then we get to the point where Komurasaki is now conning these men out of their money, and Kuroshiro is just of course letting her do it because it's part of their plan to con these horrible men out of their money and their livelihoods and everything, to then use that money to then give to the poor as him as Uchimizu Kozu and everything. So they plan all of that. So they're conning all these horrible men out of their money and everything. I kind of wonder if there's any of the other women who work in the brothels that kind of do this as well, and that Denjiro is fine with it because they're conning stupid, bad men out of their money. I think he would be fine with that, and he'd be like, yeah, that's fine, just make sure we get a cut. And they're like, okay. and that's just how it goes, type of a thing. I would love that if that was the case. Again, questions for Oda. And eventually what ends up happening is, of course, Orochi falls for Komurasaki. And Denjiro is like, okay, or Kiyoshiro is just like, okay, well, we have to take advantage of this. This gives us an in when it comes to trying to get rid of Orochi. So he tells, Komurasaki, Yori, that from now on you need to wear this, like, these fake blood packs and stuff like that under your kimono, so that way if need be, I am able to then fake your death if something happens. If Orochi gets too close or something like that, I can use these to fake your death. And that's where we get to where, we get into the Wano arc. We get into the Wano arc, and of course we're having it be that it's, we're introduced to Kiyoshiro, that he actually, the first thing we see him do, which I love, is like, you see him mocking Orochi, which is just funny, because he's like, mocking Orochi for, like, how much he's terrified of, like, Toki's prophecy and the fate, or the chance that the Kozuki family will return and avenge themselves after 20 years and everything. So he's just like, Firefox Kinemon and the Nine Red Scabbards should appear. I, for one, would welcome it. I would enjoy a chance to show you my skill with the blade. And, like, he says this later on to Orochi and everything. But it's a double meaning, because, of course, if they showed back up again, Denjiro is going to, Kiyoshiro as Denjiro is going to be fighting alongside them to take down Orochi, and it would give him the chance to actually finally fight against Orochi and end him the way that Denjiro has wanted to do for the past 20 years, ever since what happened with Odin and even prior to that. And everything. So we get that, and, we see him, he is going to go to the party at Orochi's house, the flower capital and the castle and everything. And, he's going to be on his way there. We also have it that one of his subordinates end up telling him about, the soba shop owner, which is, of course, Sanji, and everything, how he beat up his henchmen. So he sends Page One and Drake. Well, Page One is one sent to deal with him, deal with Sanji, and Sanji just beats him up as Stealth Black and everything. And, which is just funny. And, and then he's at, the palace when they have the big party, the banquet and everything at Orochi's, behest and everything. And, like, Komurasaki is there and everything. And we have it that, Kiyoshiro is just, praising Orochi. He's also getting praised for how amazing Komurasaki is and everything. And, of course, Orochi is courting Komurasaki, which is just disturbing on so many levels. So we have that. And, they just go through all this other stuff. And then, of course, we have it that, Orochi is starting to get made fun of by people for believing Toki's prophecy. And, of course, this makes Toko laugh, and this, of course, leads to then Orochi going berserk and trying to attack Toko, and is then slapped by Komurasaki, which I still love that scene. She's resting in the back, and I don't want to disturb her, so I won't do the whole loud smack noise. So we have that, and then, of course, Orochi ends up, activating his devil fruit, and he is, thrashing around, and he thrashes Komurasaki around after she's, tried to, she, insulted him and everything else like that, and he tries to give her a chance to, repent, but she denies it. She, defies it and everything, and what ends up happening is, of course, that's when Kiyoshiro then strikes down Komurasaki. He seems to end her. And, ends her right in front of Orochi. And Orochi is just like, why did you do this? Why did you do this for me? And he's like, she insulted you and she defied you. What else? My loyalty is to you, not her. So it's like cementing Kiroshiro's loyalty toward Orochi, which makes Orochi believe that Kiyoshiro is loyal to him because he took down, the most amazing courtesan for Orochi. and everything. So we have that, but we know it's also because like Kiroshiro is trying to. He ends up finding the card containing Kinemon's secret message with like the cranes and the moon and everything else like that, and the snake. So we have that. Later, he returns to the red light district because, of course, now they're getting ready to have to deal with, the aftermath of the death of Komurasaki, with him having killed her, executed her, whatever, slain her. Now they have to plan her, funeral, and of course it's like, okay, well that's gonna get like canceled and redirected and everything. um, And what ends up happening is, they have to, play that, she died, so it's, they faked her death, so now, Hiyori is running away with Toko and everything, and that's where, it ties into Zoro's story and everything. And like, there's people that, of course, are angry at Denjiro, or angry at Kiroshiro because he, supposedly killed Komurasaki. Because she was so beautiful, and people are angry at him because of that and everything. And they're like, they're really angry about this, but like, then Kiroshiro doesn't care. He knows she's alive, and he knows he's strong enough to defend himself against pretty much anybody that would get sent after him. Orochi is also very enraged about this, but he is also angry about like Kinemon's secret message that they ended up finding out about, that he found out about because of Kanjuro. From there, that a little bit later, we then get to the point where it is time for Komurasaki's funeral, and this is, of course, corresponding for when they have where they're going to have the execution for Yasuie. And, Orochi takes this to mean that, if I kill him, then it will be like a way of appeasing Komurasaki for reasons. Because he's stupid. As I stated in like 3 whatever videos it took for me to go through Orochi, he's stupid. And Denjiro or Kiroshiro is there for the wake that they have in Ransetsu Town for her. He then also ends up blocking Zoro's attack when Zoro goes to try and attack Orochi. So they kind of clash a little bit there, which is nice. Then we finally get to the day of the fire festival. And what happens is that Orochi leaves Kiroshiro in charge of the flower capital while he is going off to go to the fire festival at Onigashima. Because he's like, Kiroshiro is loyal to me, he's not going to betray me, he will keep the city safe, and blah, 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 keep order, and then I'll come back in, however many hours and have my city back. I'll be fine. So, Orochi heads off to Onigashima. Later, what ends up happening is Kiroshiro then ends up freeing all of the samurai who were imprisoned in Ransetsu Town because they had this crescent moon mark on their ankle. He frees them, and together with the Kiroshiro family, they then make their way toward the harbor that they are supposed to meet at, where, according to the message that Yasuie made, where they are supposed to meet to rendezvous with the rest of the 9 Red Scabbards, with Kinemon's group. And they make their way there, and they show up, and he slices down, I think it's at least one of the Beast Pirate ships and everything, and he gets to the, where the Kinemon's group is and everything, with all of the other, the rest of the Scabbards, and with the the rest of with the Luffy and Kid and Law's crews and everything, and the Minks and everything, and he gets there, and he slices down one of the Beast Pirate ships, and then he takes off his ponytail muff warmer thing that he wears. I still don't understand that. Takes that off, reveals himself, and he is, I am Denjiro. I am a member of the 9 Red Scabbards. I was a, vassal, a retainer, a loyal follower and friend of Kozuki Oden and everything, and I have brought, all of these samurai along with my own forces with me to swear to you, to follow Kinemon, and to take down Orochi and Kaido and free Wano. And I love the fact that the way that he proves that he is Denjiro, because like there's only 3 people who knew what happened fully during the Mountain God incident 41 years ago at the beginning of the Odin flashback. And those 3 people are Odin, who is dead, Kinemon, who's the one who stole the pig in the first place, well, stole the pig from the bandits who kidnapped the pig from his parent in the first place, and then Denjiro, who was there. So that, and they never told anybody else about that. So those 3 are the only one. So Kinemon knows and Denjiro knows, and that's how he's able to prove that he is Denjiro, as opposed to being someone pretending to be Denjiro. And then they're just like, but what happened to your face and hair? And he's like, well, this is what anger and rage and loathing and everything else like that'll do to you. Not good for your complexion. and so that's what happens. And then that will be where I lead into the last bit for Denjiro, which will be the next video for this. But that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.